the deep waters below, daring each other to see who could stay under the longest. Andy was hesitant at first, knowing that the deep waters were home to all kinds of creatures, some of them dangerous. But the peer pressure and the allure of adventure got the better of him. He took a deep breath and plunged into the cool water, the others following suit. For a few moments, it was all laughter and splashing around. But then, out of nowhere, a dark shadow loomed beneath the surface. Andy barely had time to register what was happening before a massive creature revealed itself to Andy and all his friends. To their horror, they met the apex predator of the sea, the great white shark. As Andy struggled in the water, his body thrashing with fear, his eyes locked onto the great white shark's eyes. They were cold and black, filled with a primal hunger that chilled him to the bone. The shark's massive jaws opened wide, revealing row upon row of razor-sharp teeth, each one glinting in the sunlight. Andy's heart pounded in his chest as he fought to stay afloat, but the shark was relentless. Its powerful jaws clamped down on his leg, the teeth sinking deep into his flesh. The pain was excruciating, a white-hot fire that shot through his entire body. The freezing ocean engulfed him, the salt water stinging his eyes and nostrils. He kicked and thrashed, desperate to reach the surface and escape the jaws of the great white. But the shark was relentless, circling him with the precision of a hunter, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Blood seeped into the water from the gash on Andy's leg, a result of the shark's initial assault. The metallic tang of blood filled the water, further inciting the shark's primal instincts. Andy's heart raced as he felt the beast's massive jaws clamp down on his leg, its serrated teeth tearing through flesh and bone like a hot knife through butter. He screamed, the pain unbearable, as the shark shook its massive head, trying to rip him apart. Andy's survival instincts kicked in, and he fought back with everything he had. He jabbed at the shark's eyes, desperately trying to pry open its monstrous jaws that were clamped around his leg. The water turned into a crimson hue as blood mixed with seawater, creating a macabre scene. His vision blurred, his strength waning. Andy knew he was in the fight for his life. He mustered every ounce of energy left in him and delivered a powerful punch to the shark's snout. The shark finally released him, its eyes rolling back in momentary shock, giving Andy the opportunity he needed. He propelled himself towards the surface, blood trailing behind him like a grotesque crimson ribbon. His friends on the boat were screaming his name, reaching out for him as he breached the surface, gasping for air. But the shark wasn't done yet. With a final burst of speed, the great white charged at Andy, its massive jaws gaping wide. Andy's friends watched in horror as the shark's teeth closed around him, tearing him apart in a gruesome spectacle. Blood sprayed into the air, painting the ocean in a deep shade of red as Andy's body disappeared beneath the surface, consumed by a ravenous predator. The sea calmed, the only evidence of the harrowing ordeal being the blood-stained water, a haunting reminder of the brutal power and unforgiving nature of the great white shark. The rest of the trip was a blur for the group. They made up stories about what had happened to Andy, telling anyone who asked that he had met a girl and decided to stay in South Carolina a while longer. But the guilt weighed heavily on them all, especially as the weeks turned into months, and there was still no sign of Andy's body. For a more unique and authentic experience, as she continued to chat with the locals, one spot kept coming up, the Honoka House sites. The more she heard about this hidden gem, the more intrigued she became. Located off the beaten path, the Honoka House sites promised crystal clear waters, vibrant coral reefs, and an abundance of marine life that few tourists ever get to see. So Jenny made up her mind. She froze in fear, knowing that tiger sharks were known to be powerful and unpredictable. In that moment, she was at their mercy. Without warning, the shark lunged at her with astonishing speed, its jaws open wide, revealing rows of teeth that seemed to close in around her in slow motion. Jenny tried to swim away, but the sheer force of the shark was too much. With a loud, bone-chilling crunch, the shark clamped its jaws around her leg, biting down with immense power. Jenny never thought that her soul-searching would take a turn for the worse, her being mauled by a huge tiger shark. Jenny screamed out in agony as the shark thrashed, trying to shake her free from its grip. She fought with all her might, kicking and punching the shark's snout in a desperate attempt to break free. Blood clouded the water around her, adding to the chaos of the scene. Despite the excruciating pain and the fear coursing through her veins, Jenny refused to give up. Her survival instincts kicked into high gear, and she summoned all of her strength to fight back. She remembered reading that tiger sharks have sensitive snouts, so she reached out with her free hand and poked the shark's eyes with all her might. The shark recoiled in pain, loosening its grip on Jenny's leg, just enough for her to wiggle free. With a burst of adrenaline-fueled energy, Jenny swam with all her might, desperately trying to reach the surface. The water around her was tinged red with blood, and her leg throbbed with a searing pain. But she refused to let go of her will to survive. James swam along, admiring the stunning underwater scenery. He noticed a large shadow approaching him. His heart skipped a beat as he realized it was a great white shark. The massive creature glided gracefully through the water, its sleek body perfectly designed for hunting. James was awestruck by the sight of the majestic predator, but he knew that he had to remain calm and collected if he wanted to survive this encounter. James was paralyzed with fear as the great white shark closed in on him, its jaws wide open. He tried to swim away as quickly as he could, but the shark was too fast, and it was upon him in an instant. With a sharp snap of its powerful jaws, the predator clamped down on James's leg, piercing through his skin and pulling him down into the depths of the ocean. James's adrenaline kicked in as he felt the searing pain shoot through his body. He knew he had to fight for his life. He started punching and kicking the shark with all his might, trying to break free from its powerful grip. The water around him turned into a murky red as he continued to struggle against the predator's jaws. Despite his best efforts, James soon realized that he was no match for the shark's immense strength. The creature continued to drag him down deeper and deeper into the ocean, making it harder and harder for him to breathe. James knew he had to come up with a new plan if he wanted to survive this brutal attack. James's heart raced in his chest as he grappled with a massive great white shark that had latched onto his leg. He kicked and thrashed, desperately trying to break free from the predator's vice-like grip. The shark's teeth pierced deeper into his flesh, sending shockwaves of pain through his body. But James refused to succumb to fear. Drawing upon every ounce of survival instincts, he summoned a surge of determination. He jammed his fingers into the shark's eyes, delivering swift and forceful punches to its gills with his free hand. The shark recoiled, loosening its grip on James's leg for a fleeting moment. It was all the opportunity James needed. With a burst of strength, he wriggled and twisted, finally breaking free from the shark's jaws. Blood clouded the water around him, but James didn't have time to dwell on the pain. He kicked upwards with all his might, desperate for a breath of air. The shark pursued him, sensing a chance for another attack, but James was resolute. Flipping onto his back, James delivered a powerful kick to the shark's snout, stunning it momentarily and buying himself precious seconds. He broke the surface of the water, gasping for breath like a man possessed. The pain in his leg was throbbing, but he refused to let it deter him. Summoning every ounce of strength left in his weary body, James swam toward the nearby rocks with renewed determination. He fought against the resistance of the water, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. Finally, with sheer determination and relentless effort, he reached the safety of the shore, dragging his battered body onto the sand. James lay motionless on the sand, his body bleeding profusely. A small crowd gathered, their faces a mix of shock and horror. As James cried out for help, a quick-thinking play of oranges, pinks, and purples. The sound of the waves and ripples lapping against the shore is the only thing that breaks the silence, and it's easy to imagine that you're the only person left in the world. It's a place of natural beauty and tranquility, where the cares of the world melt away, and all that's left is the endless expanse. Paws were clamped tight, causing her immense pain. Daniel could feel his adrenaline coursing through his veins as he swam towards them, fully aware of the danger that lay ahead. He knew he had to act quickly if he wanted to save Julia from the shark's deadly grip. As he reached the shark, Daniel took a deep breath and started throwing punches and kicks at the creature, hoping to make it release its hold on Julia. Every blow he landed on the shark only seemed to make it angrier, and it pulled Julia further away from him. The situation was getting more terrifying by the second. The shark had a tight hold on Julia's leg and was pulling her further and further away from safety. Julia's screams echoed in the water as she felt the creature's razor-sharp teeth sinking deeper into her flesh. The pain was almost unbearable, and she could feel her strength waning as the shark dragged her into the darkness of the ocean. She was running out of breath, and the pressure of the water made it even harder to fight back. As Daniel watched in horror, he knew he had to act fast. He saw the fear in Julia's eyes and knew that he couldn't let the shark take her away. As he got closer to the shark, Daniel could see its massive jaw clamp down tightly on Julia's leg. He knew that he had to act fast and decisively. Without hesitation, he reached out and grabbed the shark by its gills. The creature thrashed around, trying to shake him off, but Daniel held on tight. He could feel the strength and power of the shark as it fought against him, but he refused to give up. With all the strength he could muster, Daniel pulled on the shark's gills, trying to force it to release Julia. His heart was pounding in his chest as he fought against the massive creature. Finally, after what seemed to be like an eternity, the shark's grip on Julia's leg loosened. In that split second, Daniel grabbed Julia by the arm and started swimming towards the boat. But their ordeal was far from over. As they turned to swim towards the boat, the shark came back for another attack, its fins slicing through the dark waters, a menacing presence drawing closer. Julia and Daniel kicked violently in the direction of the shark, fighting with all their might to keep it at bay and make their way to safety. Despite the searing pain in her leg, Julia refused to let fear overcome her. She was determined to survive and protect herself and Daniel. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the couple fought back against the shark with everything they had, landing punches and kicks on the creature in a desperate bid for survival. In a desperate move, Daniel kicked the shark's snout, causing it to retreat in shock, creating a momentary respite for the couple. However, they knew they couldn't afford to let their guard down. Julia's injury needed urgent medical attention, and they had to reach the safety of the boat as soon as possible. With one arm around Julia, Daniel slowly escorted her towards the boat, his eyes scanning the water for any signs of the shark's return. Every second felt like an eternity as they made their way through the water, their hearts pounding with fear and adrenaline. Finally, they reached the safety of the boat. But before they could react, a 20-foot great white shark emerged from beneath the surface with lightning speed. With jaws wide open, the shark lunged at Tony, clamping its razor-sharp teeth onto his body. The crew's worst fears became a horrifying reality as Tony was dragged under the water by the powerful shark. The surface of the water turned crimson with blood, a stark and chilling reminder of the perilous situation. The crew's hearts pounded with fear as they watched their comrade Tony struggle in the jaws of the great white shark. Without a moment's hesitation, Harvey and the other crew members sprang into action, diving into the water and racing to Tony's rescue. The water was murky, and the shark's movements were unpredictable, making the situation all the more dangerous. As they drew closer, they could hear Tony's desperate thrashing as he fought for his life. Harvey and the crew felt a mix of massive jaws gaping open, ready to strike. Harvey, undeterred, jabbed at the shark repeatedly, aiming for its sensitive nose. The shark thrashed and writhed, lashing out at Harvey with its razor-sharp teeth, but Harvey was relentless, continuing to stab the shark until it finally succumbed to its injuries and went limp. The crew watched in awe as the once terrifying predator floated lifelessly in the water, defeated by their courage and skill. With the shark no longer a threat, the crew turned their attention to Tony, who was battered and bruised, but alive. They pulled him to safety, relieved and grateful that they had been able to rescue him from the jaws of death. But Harvey and his crew knew their work was not done yet. They needed to understand why this particular shark had been attacking beachgoers, and if it had done so before. With determination in their eyes, the crew hauled the lifeless shark onto the beach, its massive body leaving a trail in the sand. They began to examine the shark, carefully slicing it open to reveal its insides. As they made their way through the layers of skin and muscle, a putrid smell emanated from the belly of the beast. Without warning, a concoction of viscous fluid spilled forth from the shark's stomach, causing the crew to recoil in shock and disgust as the decapitated head of the missing person rolled out into the sand. The realization that the man's body had been consumed by the enormous predator left the crew stunned and appalled. Recognizing the significance of this discovery, the team knew they had to press on with their examination, aware that there could be further clues lurking within the shark's belly. With steady hands and a sense of grim determination, Harvey and his crew continued the examination. They retrieved other body parts of humans from the shark's stomach, confirming their worst fears that this particular shark had been responsible and shake the boat. Magdalene frantically searched for something else to use as a weapon. She remembered that she had a can of bear spray on board, but she wasn't sure if it would be enough to scare off a 15-foot predator. She quickly grabbed it and aimed it at the shark's face and sprayed, hoping to repel it with a strong scent. To her relief, the spray seemed to do the trick. The shark suddenly released the boat and swam away, disappearing into the darkness. Magdalene sat there for a few minutes, catching her breath and waiting to make sure the shark wasn't coming back. Magdalene breathed a sigh of relief as the shark swam away, but her relief was short-lived. Magdalene thought she was safe, but she was wrong. The shark had disappeared into the darkness, but it had not given up. It circled the boat and came back for a second attack. The shark reappeared, its massive jaws closing in on her arm. Magdalene screamed in terror as the shark clamped down on her arm, dragging her into the water. Pain shot through her body as the shark shook her violently, trying to tear her arm off. Magdalene's mind raced with fear and panic as she desperately fought back, hitting the shark with everything she could find. But the shark was too strong, and Magdalene's efforts seemed to only anger it more. Just when she thought all hope was lost, Magdalene spotted a nearby boat. With all her strength, she managed to break free from the shark's grip and swim towards the boat, yelling for help. The occupants of the boat quickly sprang into action, pulling Magdalene out of the water and taking her to shore. Her arm was badly injured, and she was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Magdalene spent the next few weeks in the hospital, recovering from her injuries. The attack had left her with deep wounds and extensive nerve damage in her arm, making it difficult to move or even hold things. She was devastated to learn that she might not ever fully regain the use of her arm. Despite the setback, Magdalene refused to give up on her dream of living in the beach town. She worked tirelessly to rehabilitate her arm, undergoing multiple surgeries and months of physical therapy. Slowly but surely, she began to regain some movement in her arm, but it would never be the same. Magdalene's experience with a shark attack had left her with a newfound appreciation for life. She realized that every moment was precious and should be treasured. She decided to use her experience to inspire others, sharing her story and encouraging people to never give up on their dreams, no matter what obstacles they might face. In the end, Magdalene found that her dream of settling down in a small beach town had come true. Despite the hardships and challenges she had faced, she had found a community of people who welcomed her with open arms and helped her through her recovery. The shark was too fast. As the shark circled back around for a second attack, its jaws gaped wide open as it prepared to strike again. This time, it bit down hard on Alex's torso, severing his body in two. The teenagers saw the full extent of the damage it had caused as their friend's lifeless body floated to the surface, torn apart and mangled beyond recognition. They watched in horror as the shark continued to thrash around, hungry for more. The other teenagers in the group realized they were in danger and quickly began to swim away as fast as they could. The water around them was turned up, making it difficult to see where the shark was, but they knew they had to get as far away as possible. As they swam, the teenagers could hear the shark's powerful thrashing in the water behind them, which only spurred them to swim faster. They knew they couldn't outrun the shark, but they hoped to create enough distance between themselves and the shark to give them a chance to reach the shore. Despite the terror and panic they felt, the teenagers remained focused on swimming and tried not to let their fear get the best of them. They swam in a zigzag pattern, hoping to make it harder for the shark to follow them. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the group reached the shore. They staggered out of the water, panting and trembling with fear, but relieved to have escaped with their lives. They looked out at the water, watching as the shark continued to thrash around, its massive body visible in the churning waves. The attack of the great white shark sent shockwaves through the beach, and people quickly realized that they were in danger. But when he looked down, he saw a large shadow moving towards him. The shadow grew bigger and bigger, and he realized with horror that it was a shark. Jera's heart raced as the shark closed in on him. It was a massive creature with rows of sharp teeth and a menacing presence. Jera knew he was in trouble, and he had to act fast. He tried to swim away, but the shark followed him, its jaws opening wide. Jera knew he had to fight back. He had heard stories of divers who had successfully fended off sharks, and he hoped he could do the same. He punched and kicked the shark in its nose and eyes, hoping to stun it, but the shark was relentless, and it kept coming back. Jera felt the shark's teeth sink into his flesh, and he screamed in pain. He could feel the blood gushing out of his thighs, and he knew he was in a life and death struggle. He desperately tried to grab his spear, but the shark kept attacking him. He fought back with all his might, punching and kicking the shark in the nose and eyes. The shark was relentless, but Jera was determined to live. He managed to get his spear and jabbed it into the shark's side, causing it to retreat. The shark recoiled in pain, and Jera used the opportunity to swim away from the shark. With blood pouring from his wounds, Jera managed to swim back to the surface. His fellow divers saw him bleeding and pulled him onto the boat. The attack had been brutal, and Jera's wounds were severe. His thighs were torn apart, and he had lost a lot of blood. But he was alive, and that was all that mattered. His fellow divers rushed him back to the village where the elders treated his wounds. Despite his injuries, he felt the shock of cold water as he plunged deep below the surface. He opened his eyes and saw the dark blue water around him, filled with all kinds of strange creatures. But Brenton wasn't afraid. He knew he was in his element. He swam to the surface and took a deep breath of air. He felt alive, more alive than he had ever felt before. He looked up at the cliff and felt a sense of pride. He had conquered the most dangerous cliff in the world. Over the next few weeks, Brenton dove from the cliff every day. He honed his skills, trying new dives and pushing himself to new limits. He even dove from the cliff at night, using only the light of the moon to guide him. But one day, something went wrong. Brenton climbed to the top of the cliff, took a deep breath, and leaped off into the air. As he soared through the sky, he felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through his veins. But as he descended towards the water, he saw something in the distance that made his heart skip a beat. A large shadow was moving in the water, and he realized with horror that it was a great white shark. Brenton tried to adjust his course and avoid the shark, but it was too late. The creature had sensed his presence and was swimming towards him with incredible speed. With only seconds to spare, Brenton braced himself for impact and hit the water hard. He felt the sharp pain shoot through his side and knew immediately that he had broken a rib. But the pain was nothing compared to the terror he felt as he saw the shark circling around him. It was a massive creature with razor-sharp teeth and a hunger in its eyes. He mustered all of his strength and swam towards the surface, trying to stay calm despite the pain in his side. The shark was relentless, though, and continued to circle around him, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Brenton knew he couldn't keep this up forever, and he needed to find a way out. He tried to swim away from the shark, but in the blink of an eye, the shark lunged towards him, and he swam headfirst into its mouth. The force of the bite caused significant trauma to Brenton's head and neck, and the shark's sharp teeth tore through his shoulders. Just when he thought all hope was lost, a group of dolphins appeared out of nowhere. They surrounded Brenton and chased off the shark with their powerful bodies and piercing calls. Brenton was in shock, but he knew he had been saved by these intelligent creatures. He climbed onto a nearby rock and collapsed, panting and clutching his bloodied shoulders. The dolphins swam around him for a few more moments before disappearing into the depths of the ocean. Brenton knew that he owed them his life and would never forget their bravery. Brenton then swam back to shore, bruised and battered, but alive. He knew that he'd been extremely lucky to still be alive despite being attacked by the great white shark, and he vowed to never take unnecessary risk again. But he also knew he saw a dark shadow circling the yacht. It was a shark. The group quickly scrambled onto the deck, fear in their eyes. "What do we do?" Russell yelled, panic rising in his voice. Jerry, the most level-headed of the group, took charge. "Everyone stay calm," he said. "We need to figure out a way to scare the shark away." They quickly searched the yacht for anything they could use as a weapon. All they found were some brooms and mops, but Jerry had an idea. "Let's bang these against the side of the yacht," he said. "It might scare the shark away." The group began banging the brooms and mops against the side of the yacht, making as much noise as they could. The shark seemed to take notice, circling closer and closer to the yacht. Suddenly, the shark lunged out of the water and snapped its jaws at the side of the yacht. The group screamed in terror, sure that the shark would break through the thin fiberglass, but the yacht held up and the shark swam away. The group let out a sigh of relief, hugging each other tightly. "That was close," Erica said, her voice shaking. "I think it's time we head back out in front of her." Magdalene knew she had to stop and explore. She parked the RV in a nearby campground and spent the next few days wandering around the town. She met some friendly locals who showed her. The family tried to calm him down, thinking he was just nervous about being out in the ocean. Suddenly, Charlie let out a loud bark and jumped off the board, diving into the water. The family was startled, but assumed he was just chasing after a fish or a bird. However, they soon realized that something was very wrong. As Charlie swam back towards them, they saw a large shadow moving beneath the water. They realized with horror that it was a shark, and it was headed straight towards them. The family froze, unsure of what to do. Suddenly, the paddleboard shook, and Mr. Thompson felt a jolt beneath him. He looked down into the water and saw a large fin disappearing beneath the surface. Mrs. Thompson and Emily started to panic, while Jackson tried to keep a level head. Charlie continued to bark, sensing the danger that was lurking below. Mr. Thompson started paddling towards the shore, with Charlie swimming alongside him. But the shark was too fast, and it quickly caught up with them. The family was terrified, but Charlie was brave. He swam between the shark and the family, barking and growling loudly. The shark hesitated for a moment, confused by the dog's aggression. Charlie didn't back down, however. He continued to bark and growl, determined to protect his family. The shark circled around the family, trying to find a way to attack. But Charlie kept swimming back and forth, keeping himself between the shark and the family. The family was able to reach the shore thanks to Charlie's bravery. As they collapsed on the sand, the family looked out at the water, where Charlie was still barking and growling at the shark. The shark finally gave up and swam away, defeated by the dog's fierce protection. The family watched in awe as Charlie returned to them. Fish would likely be, and he had to be able to read the currents and the tides in order to catch them. He spent several hours casting his lines, moving the boat around to different spots, and trying different kinds of bait. Finally, he felt a tug on his line, signaling that he had caught something. He began to reel in his line, feeling the weight of the fish pulling against the rod. When he finally saw the fish, he felt a rush of excitement. It was a large grouper, one of the most prized catches in Florida. He carefully brought the fish onto the boat, taking care to remove the hook and to measure it to make sure it was within the legal size limit. He put the fish into a cooler and then set out to catch more. After several minutes, he felt a strong tug on his line. He knew immediately that it was no ordinary fish. He began to reel in his line, feeling the weight of the creature pulling against his rod. As he brought the fish closer to the boat, he realized that he had caught something big. He could see the dorsal fin cutting through the water, and he knew that it was a shark. He could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins as he battled the fish, trying to bring it in. Juan had mixed emotions about the catch. On the one hand, he felt a rush of excitement at the thought of catching such a powerful creature. On the other hand, he knew that sharks were dangerous animals, and he wasn't sure if he was equipped to handle one. He carefully pulled the shark closer to the boat, trying to keep a safe distance. As he got a closer look, he could see that it was a bull shark, a species known for its aggression and strength. The shark thrashed and fought against the line, trying to break free. Juan struggled to keep his footing as the boat rocked back and forth in the water. He knew he had to be careful, or the shark could easily pull him overboard. After a 20-minute battle, Juan was finally able to bring the shark up to the side of the boat. He could see its razor-sharp teeth and its powerful jaws. He knew that he had to be careful if he was going to release the shark back into the water. He carefully removed the hook from the shark's mouth and took a few quick photos, wanting to remember the experience. Just as he was about to measure the length of the shark, it began jerking around and bit him on his ankle. Luckily, he was able to pry away its jaws instantly and only left him with minor wounds. Because of this, he immediately decided to lower the shark back to the water. For a moment, the shark seemed disoriented and confused. Then it suddenly surged forward, disappearing into the depths of the ocean. Juan breathed a sigh of relief, feeling grateful for the experience, but also glad that it was over. Juan sat back in the boat and began treating his wounds, watching the waves ripple from where the shark had disappeared. He sailed back to the dock where he sought medical attention. He was sent home immediately after being treated for his minor wounds. Back at home, he told the unbelievable story to his family, and they knew he had just had one of the most thrilling experiences of his life. It was a moment he would never forget, and a reminder of the power and majesty. There they rented a Jeep and drove along the scenic road to Hana, taking in breathtaking views of the coastline. One day, they decided to try their luck at a secluded surf spot that they had heard about from the locals. It was a hidden gem, surrounded by stunning cliffs and crystal clear water. As they paddled out, they noticed that there was no other surfers around, and they felt like they had found their own private paradise. But as they waited for the next set of waves, they suddenly heard a loud splash behind them. They noticed a dark shape moving towards them. At first, they thought it was a dolphin, but as it got closer, they realized it was a tiger shark, its jaws wide open. The shark's razor-sharp teeth were visible, and the couple froze in terror. Their hearts raced as they watched the shark swim towards them, its sharp teeth glinting in the sun. Sebastian and Olivia tried to paddle away, but the shark quickly caught up to them. The couple could see the shark circling them, and they knew they were in serious trouble. Fear filled their hearts as they saw the massive predator getting closer and closer. Olivia's heart was pounding as she remembered stories of tiger sharks attacking humans. She looked over at Sebastian, who was trying to remain calm, but she could see the fear in his eyes too. They had never felt so vulnerable before. The couple tried to stay together and keep their boards close, hoping that the shark would lose interest and swim away. But the tiger shark seemed to be fixated on them, and it kept circling them, getting closer with every pass. Olivia's mind raced as she tried to come up with a plan. She knew that they had to stay calm and not make any sudden movements that would attract the shark's attention. They had to make themselves as small and unappetizing as possible. As the shark swam closer, Sebastian grabbed Olivia's hand and whispered to her to stay still. He knew that any sudden movements could provoke the shark and make it attack. They watched in horror as the shark came closer and closer until they could see its eyes staring at them. Suddenly, the shark turned and swam away, disappearing into the depths of the ocean. The couple let out a sigh of relief, but they knew they had narrowly escaped a terrifying fate. They started paddling towards the shore as quickly as they could, hoping that the shark wasn't following them anymore. They could feel the fear rising in their chest, but they refused to give up. They kept paddling, their arms burning with exertion. Finally, they reached the shore and they scrambled under the sand, panting and sweating. Sebastian and Olivia paddled back to the shore, shaken but grateful to be alive. They knew that they had been lucky, and they would never forget the terror they had experienced that day. From that day on, they vowed to always be aware of the dangers of the ocean and to respect its creatures, especially the mighty tiger shark. As their honeymoon came to an end, Sebastian and Olivia knew that they had had a one-of-a-kind experience and made memories that would last a lifetime.